Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be going through the different types of questions that are on the practice assessment, as well as the actual test for Unit 4. So starting out, first thing, we are talking about the 4 different types of slopes, right? So we have 0, positive, negative, and undefined. Those are our 4 different situations. Our 0 slope is always going to be this horizontal line, right? Horizontal lines are always going to be side to side. Okay, horizontal line. If you think of 0, the word 0, you can kind of draw a horizontal line, except I wrote my Z at an angle, but you could draw a horizontal line through the Z, so that's kind of how I like to remember it. So our 0 slope is a horizontal line. This is going to be a positive slope. So as you look, it's going up and to the right. Like if this was a hill and you were climbing it, you'd have to go up the hill. Similarly, if you look at this one, this is our negative slope, because as you look towards the right, it's going down. If this was a hill, you would go down the hill. Our last option is undefined, right? Undefined. And so this is our vertical line. Right, or vertical, it's going up and down. The way I like to remember it is if you write undefined, you can make vertical lines out of the U. Okay, so kind of a similar way to remember our vertical and horizontal slopes. All right, so this is our first thing, our 4 different types of slopes. The next thing that we come across on the test is using our slope formula. So remember our slope formula. Let me grab a different color because then we can color code. Right, so our slope formula is y2 minus y1 up top over x2 minus x1 on the bottom, right? It's always our y's up top, x is on the bottom. So if we are to color code, this can be our x2, this can be our y2. It doesn't matter which is our first ordered pair or second ordered pair, as long as you are consistent with how you plug them into the formula. Okay, so our x1, and then finally our y1. Alright, so we go to substitute that in. We have m equals y2 is 6 minus negative 8. Be careful whenever you substitute in a negative number, just go ahead, throw some parentheses around it. Alright, 3 minus negative 1 on the bottom, again, negative. So we have those double negatives. That actually ends up giving us a positive. 6 plus 8 gives us 14 up top. 3 minus negative 1 is the same thing as 3 plus 1, which gives us 4. We always want to simplify our slopes, right? We want them to be a fraction, right, instead of a decimal, because it gives us that rise over run. So if we are to simplify that, that simplifies as 7 over 2. All right, and you can always use Desmos to double check this. Desmos can do all of the work for you, which is really nice. All right, so that's our slope formula. Up next, we are writing the equation given a graph. Let me just, there we go. So it's a little easier to see. I think on the test you only have to write the slope, but this way we're just doing our extra step. Okay. So first thing you want to do is you want to identify your y-intercept. So we look 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our y-intercept. This is that b value in our equation. So here we have b equals negative 4, right? That's where we cross our y-axis. Remember, our equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. Right, so I'm just going to kind of do both of these at the same time, actually. So we'll do our y-intercept first. Go over here, find our y-intercept. 1, 2, 3, 4. B equals a positive 4 this time. All right, our next step is to find our slope. So that's our rise over run. Remember, you always want to pick points. If they're not already perfectly identified for you, you want to pick points. that hit exactly in the corners of these grid lines. Okay, so if we look, we go between these 2 points, we go down 1, and then we go over 1, 2, 3, down 1 over 3, and since we went down, that's a -1, so our slope is -1 over 3. Alright, we'll go find our slope over here, where we want to find one that has our point where we hit perfectly in the corners. Found some points there. So we go, this time we go up 3 over 1. So our slope is 3 over 1, which is just 3. Okay, so now it's time to put all of this together. So we have y equals mx plus b. So this equation is y equals -1/3 x minus 4. This equation is y equals 3x plus 4. Okay. Again, like I said, I think on the test you only have to identify the slope, but we did go ahead and do that extra step of identifying our intercepts and piecing it all together. Okay? So, up next, it's all about graphing equations by hand. Okay, so, hold on, let me take a second for this to like refocus. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to plot your y-intercept. So let me actually zoom in on just one graph. There we go. So, right here, if we're looking at it, this is our y-intercept, right? That -3. Oops, there we go. That's our y-intercept. And that 2 is our slope. So your first step is to plot your y-intercept. You go to your y-axis, you find -3, put a point. Since our slope is 2, that tells us we're going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and so forth. All right, you are going to have to kind of go backwards as well. So instead of up 2 and right, we go down 2 and left 1, down 2, left 1. Okay, and then your last step, this is where it's kind of nice that it's online. There's this little line tool you can use. I'm going to kick it old school for a second and use a ruler. But then your last step is just to connect all of your points. All right. So that's our first one. Our second graph, there we go. Same process. First step, plot our y-intercept right here, which is +1. All right. Now we need to apply our slope. This time it is a negative slope, and we know negative slopes look something about like that, right? They're going to go down. So from our point, we go down 1 over 3, down 1 over 3. Now we're going to do the same thing, but go backwards. So up 1, left 3, up 1, left 3. Okay, and then you're going to connect all of your points. Okay. So that is how we would graph our equations by hand. Let me zoom back out. Alrighty. So that is all about graphing. Right. Next thing, we're moving on to our literal equations. Okay, so remember, this is when our equation, we have multiple variables and we just want to solve for one. Alright, so in this unit, since we are working with lines, we obviously want to solve for y. We want everything to be in y equals mx plus b form. So I'm just going to highlight that y since that's what we're solving for. Alright, so we go to solve. We want to get that y by itself. This 4 is in our way, so we subtract 4 from both sides. These are not like terms, so we cannot combine them. We need to keep them separate. So we have 2y equals 6x minus 4. Okay. Our next step is to divide both sides by 2. Right? And now we have to split up our fraction, right? Our equations of lines never look like this. They're never these ugly fractions. So we got to split it up. So we have 6x over 2. And the other piece is negative 4 over 2. And this is actually going to end up simplifying quite nicely because 6 divided by 2 is just 3. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So this would be our equation, but the question asks for the slope. So our slope right here is 3. All right. Similar idea right here. All right. This 5x is in the way. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5x from both sides. All right. When we do that, we have negative 5x plus 10 equals negative 5y. Divide both sides by that negative 5. Split up our fraction. Negative 5x divided by negative 5 plus 10 divided by negative 5 equals y. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is just 1. So we have y equals 1x. 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. Again, the question is asking for slope. So our slope for this one is just a positive 1. Okay? Alright. Up next, we want the equation of a line with a slope of 1/2 and that passes through a point. So remember, we're going to use our lovely y equals mx plus b form. This is slope-intercept. So we are going to go ahead and you're going to substitute in the slope for m, and then you substitute in your ordered pairs. So we have that x coordinate and we have the y coordinate. Right, so we're going to substitute into our equation and solve for b. When we substitute in, we have 8 equals 1/2 times negative 4 plus b. 1/2 times negative 4 is going to give us negative 2. Right? Add 2 to both sides because we want to get that b by itself. We find that b equals 10. So now we need to substitute in our b and our slope into our equation. So we get y equals 1/2 x plus 10. That is our equation of the line with a slope of 1/2 that passes through the point negative 4, 8. Okay. Next one, super similar, except there's just an added step. So our first step is to find our slope. So remember, we use our slope formula. We're going to do 3 minus negative 6. Oh, my bad. Those are our x values. I got ahead of myself. We actually do 6 minus 9 up top, 3 minus negative 6 on the bottom. 6 minus 9 gives us negative 3. 3 minus negative 6 is the same thing as 3 plus 6, which gives us 9. Negative 3 divided by 9 leaves us with a negative 1/3. So this is our slope. Our next step is like we just did in this previous problem. You can just pick one ordered pair to substitute in. It doesn't matter. I personally tend to pick ordered pairs that have a 0 or if the numbers are all positive. Okay, just kind of makes things a little easier, a little cleaner. All right, so we'll plug into our y equals mx plus b form. I'm going to go ahead and use this ordered pair. So we have 6 equals negative 1/3 times 3 plus b. Negative 1/3 times 3 is the same thing as negative 1. Oops. Just realized you couldn't see that. There we go. There we go. Add this 1 to both sides, so we get that b equals 7. And our third step is to put our slope and our intercept together. where we have our slope and our y-intercept. So our equation is y equals negative 1/3 x plus 7. Right? That's how we go about finding that. We have 3 more questions, except I'm not going to go through them super in-depth, numbers 9 and 10. I'll just get you started on those. So for number 8, this is where we're talking about horizontal and vertical lines. So remember, horizontal lines are the ones that go side to side. If you were to graph that on your coordinate plane, it would cross the y-axis. Okay, so those are always going to be written in the form of y equals some number. All right, for our horizontal lines. Vertical are the ones that go up and down. And when you graph those, they cross the x-axis. So they're always going to be written as x equals some number. All right. So when you want the equation of a horizontal line that passes through a point, you just take your y-coordinate. All right, so remember our ordered pairs are written x comma y. So the horizontal line that passes through this point is just y equals -4. All right. Similarly, for the vertical line, you take your x-coordinate. So this would be x equals -3. All right. That's how we would do our horizontal and vertical lines passing through a specific point. For 9 and 10, we are just going to briefly talk about these. These are all about parallel and perpendicular lines. So remember, our parallel slope is the exact same slope. So if you're given an equation, you want to identify your old slope, which is 3. And then our new slope, if we want it to be parallel, has to be the exact same as our old slope. All right. So then your next step would be you plug in your new slope and your ordered pair that was given to you into y equals mx plus b. So you'd have -1 equals 3 times -3 plus b. And like we've just done, you'd go ahead and solve for b to then write your equation. Okay. Similarly for perpendicular, you want to identify your old slope, which is -2. But for our new slope, remember, it's the opposite reciprocal. So we need to change the sign. So instead of negative, our new slope is going to be a positive. And the reciprocal means that we take our 2, which can really be written as 2/1, right? Flip that fraction, and you get 1/2. So our reciprocal, our perpendicular slope, would be a positive 1/2, right? And then same thing we just did for parallel. You plug in your new slope and your ordered pair into y equals mx plus b form, solve for b, and then write your equation. There is a video on Google Classroom going through these types of questions a little bit more in depth if you want to watch that. All right, hope this helps. If you have any other questions before the test, let me know.